There'll be some managers in your league panicking,
Yep.
Ready to sell Breece Hall for pennies on the dollar. There you go. Swoop in. Take advantage. Vulture in.
The AFC.
I know that was like a vulture. It was like a vulture thing. It was kind of
terrifying.
Where did Michael Keaton play? He's
Yeah.
the vulture in Homecoming, the first Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, and it's Michael Keaton in the Big Bird outfit.
So you look both like the Vulture and a Vulture.
And Michael Keaton
The double
and Hollywood leading man Michael Keaton. Cut to Michael Keaton, like, kids, I'm going to show you this movie of mine that's on Peacock, and what's this guy? I don't look anything like that. Like, what's going on? I'm sorry, Michael Keaton. Apologies. I've always enjoyed your work.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. I'm Connor Rogers alongside Matthew Berry, Jake Croucher, and Lawrence Jackson. It is mock draft day. We have that coming your way. But first, the Vulture Act.
That's right. Michael Keaton drinks free. Lawrence, you've seen Spider-Man Homecoming, right?
I've seen Batman. Listen, it's a classic. Come on, man. I can't help you with that one, man.
I've seen Batman.
Homecoming.
But it must have been good, though. It must have been good if he's here drinking for free.
Oh, no.
Look at this.
Look at this.
Wow,
This is
pretty good
terrifying.
impersonation.
Wow.
Yeah,
shocking
the
visual.
villain was known as Vulture. Adrian Toombs was the name of the character there. And you know what? Let's be honest. It's a great impression by me.
20.
Look at me. Master impressionist.
You might get casted in the remake.
Oh, boy.
Maybe I should be doing. Here's what I need. I'm going to call my agent. I'm going to call Josh Levy. I'm going to call my agent and say, listen, here's what I need you to do. I need you to call Michael Keaton's agent and be like, look, I'll take the scraps. All the scripts that get submitted to Michael Keaton, the ones that he's just like, I'm not doing that crap. I will do that crap. Yes.
The villains no one's heard of.
Yes,
Yeah.
Any of the small character roles.
You could have taken his role in Herbie Fully Loaded or Minions. Yeah.
Toy Story 3.
Spotlight, probably not. Spotlight, probably a bit kind of beyond your capabilities.
Yes. No, you're right. Spotlight was a good movie.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Right. But I could have done a voice in Toy Story 3.
Why don't you just be a stunt double?
Beetlejuice.
He was great in Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
He was great in Beetlejuice.
Yeah,
I couldn't have done that.
Another
No.
classic.
But Herbie Reloaded feels like
Fully
I could
Loaded,
have. That
yeah.
one I could have done.
Yeah.
I feel like that one I could have done. I mean,
Yeah.
let's not for nothing. I am the highest-grossing actor of all time worldwide. I mean, not for nothing, Michael Keaton. You're a brilliant actor. Again, you drink free here at the Happy Hour, but. Just saying, if you add up our total box office in terms the amount of money I've made, and you have to do it on a per movie basis, right? But again, if you average out how much all the movies that Michael Keaton has been in, and then you average out all the amount of money that in movies I've been in, Michael Keaton's in second. I have a higher per movie gross average than Michael Keaton.
Need for Speed that he was in that didn't outdo the Avengers? No.
It did not.
No.
Efficiency.
Right. Thank you. I'm
Efficiency.
very efficient, Lawrence. That's
Very
the
important
point.
in fantasy
Very
football, too.
important. Not as much
Efficiency.
in movies. Did you watch the movie Homecoming?
I didn't. No, I didn't. I did not. And I will eventually, though, but I didn't last night.
Minus 1,000 to not watch Homecoming.
Yeah. I spent time with my family or something. I didn't watch Spider-Man Homecoming, but it's on.
It's something you could have
It's on
done.
the docket.
It's something you could have done with family.
Yeah.
It's something you could have done with family since you've got your kids running around in Spider-Man outfits. A
True.
bunch of fakers. The entire Croucher family is a bunch of phonies.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Spider-Man phonies.
Like Ride or Die this year, it's on the short list.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
All right, let's get into the mock draft because this was a beast. For context, all of us were in it, and a lot of our staff here. We had our producers in it. We had a lot of the guys from Rotoworld, obviously Roto Pat, Denny, who we talk about on the show all the time.
Is Denny a colleague or staff? I'm just curious. You just said a lot of staff here.
Well, staff that works on the show and colleagues that we work with at Rotoworld.
Nice
balance.
Denny, one of the big people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or is it
Denny's
one of the
definitely one
little
of the
people?
big people.
Okay.
We Photoshop.
The biggest.
Because if he's what he is, then what am I? I actually don't know what I am. I'm just a dude.
Yeah.
It's kind of where we're at right now.
I'm a dude who employed.
No, you are. You're Batman. You're Batman.
And sometimes
at
the weather
a
look.
table full of Spider-Mans.
All right, so 12-team PPR, roster format, 1 quarterback, 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, tight end, 1 flex spot, 6 on your bench, and here is where all 4 of us picked. I picked 2nd overall, Lawrence picked 3rd overall, Jay had the 5th overall pick, Barry picked at 9, capitalized maybe on that wraparound. And let's just jump right into round one here, fellas, because it was kind of a twist in the beginning here. This thing went wide receiver, and wide receiver. Justin Jefferson, Ja'Marr Chase, Tyreek Hill off the board first. We did not have a running back go, as you see here, until the 4th overall pick. One of our producers, Pete, ends up taking Christian McCaffrey there, Barry.
Right, and I'm a little surprised that McCaffrey fell that far, but also you sort of get it. It's hard to argue with Ja'Marr Chase. To me, the more interesting thing is that Lawrence, Tyreek Hill, that most people take Cooper Kupp there if they're not taking McCaffrey. So I'll let Lawrence talk about Hill, but McCaffrey going at 4. Look, I guess the concern there is why he may have dropped is the splits when Elijah Mitchell has been healthy aren't as encouraging. It's not really his bell cow, and we've seen over the years that wide receivers have more, floor than running backs who get injured more often.
Lawrence, so you take Tyreek Hill there. I guess a bit of a surprise, although definitely one of the elite wide receivers in round one.
Yeah. So most drafts I have the 2 or the 3 spots, so I got the 3 spot here. I want to leave all of my drafts with either Tyreek Hill or Jaylen Waddle. Jaylen Waddle wouldn't have made it back to me in this particular draft. I won't be able to get him anywhere else. And if he puts up similar numbers to what he did last season, then this pick will be well worth it. But I would have had no problem with Christian McCaffrey because it's a mock. I was like, all right, let Pete have him. But I would have been mad if he would have fell even further because then I would have felt guilty because I know I should have taken him. Well, really, you should have taken him. But, Pete got him at 4, so that's solid.
I'm just going to say this, though I think, Lawrence, you bring up a great point that I always talk about when drafts. When people will say to me, they'll say some version of that, like, I'm picking 3, and I really want Tyreek Hill, but, I know you have Barry. I know you have him at 8 or whatever it is. Is that too early? And I'm like, no, because the point is like, look, you truly believe in a big way that Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins overall is going to have a monster year. Hard to argue with that, right? I mean, Hill's actually come out and said he wants 2,000 yards this year. And he's not coming back to you. Right. If you want Tyreek Hill on your team, Lawrence, like, that's your only chance to get it. And the fact is that rankings are really just about kind of market value. And the minute the games are played, all rankings are off the board. It doesn't matter. And so I'm a big believer in, like, I sort of follow my board, but ultimately it's about, hey, this is a game we play for fun. These are the players you want to root for. And if you have a stronger feeling about Tyreek Hill than you do some of the other options that were available to you, and he's not coming back to you, right? So if you want him, get him. It's not what I would have done there. Like, again, I would have gone McCaffrey at 3 if he was still available.
Right.
But I have no issue with the pick.
I think people forget that Tyreek Hill last year finished as wide receiver 2 in a season where I think a lot of stuff went wrong for Tyreek Hill. He has to deal with all of the Tua injuries and different quarterback situations. He's banged up the last month of the season. Before he got hurt, he was having as good a season as Justin Jefferson. So it's just a matter, he's just a little bit older than Jefferson and Chase, so you wonder if someone who's so dependent on their speed is going to slow down at some point, but he didn't show any signs last year.
Let's pull up round one more time.
There's
I want to show the back half.
There's some off the field stuff that potentially could creep in as well.
For sure. So the back half here, Barry, you take Diggs at 9, and then of course our producer Dameon takes your ride or die right after that. Diggs over your ride or die. I was personally a little surprised by that.
I'm so high on Amon-Ra St. Brown, but to take him, and yes, of course, Damien, my producer, this show is built with nothing but people that just try to screw me left and right.
You had him, though.
I knew there was no way that my ride or die was coming back to me. I felt like I had no problem taking him over Lamb, but it was shocking to me that, just the rest of the round, the way it goes, McCaffrey at 4, Eckler at 5, Kelsey at 6, Cooper Kupp at 7, Bijan went at 8, and then I'm sitting there with my ride or die, Amon-Ra St. Brown, but also Stefon Diggs. CeeDee Lamb is still on the table as well. I was really shocked about that. I couldn't pass up Stefon Diggs. Again, I truly believe that Amon-Ra takes another level, but even my own ranks, where I'm, as far as I can tell, I'm the highest in the industry on Amon-Ra St. Brown, or at least certainly I was when I announced him as my ride or die. I still have Diggs ranked ahead of him.
Yeah, I think Diggs has kind of become boring among the elite wide receivers just because he is very steady every year. It's 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. And that would be the best season of Amon-Ra's career to date. And he can go beyond that, but I think Diggs is just so high floor.
Diggs, because he's with Josh Allen, he gets targeted a lot in the end zone, and he's actually gotten unlucky there. Diggs has a Randy Moss-like season within his range of outcomes. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not even saying that's likely to happen. But given his skill set, the Bills' offense, and his quarterback, by the way, and not a ton of established target competition beyond Stefon Diggs, like that's within the realm of possibility. Like a 15, 18 touchdown season is certainly within the realm of possibility. Like Diggs is one of those guys that could have just, there's a short list of people that could have double-digit touchdowns and 2,000 yards. And Stefon Diggs is one of those guys. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not even saying it's likely to happen. I'm just saying it's not out of the question.
All right, let's jump into round 2 here, Lawrence. I want to start with you because you said you want to walk out of your drafts with one of Tyreek Hill or Jaylen Waddle. Jaylen Waddle ends up being taken at the 5th pick in the 2nd round by Roto Pat. So do you think, obviously, some good value here for Waddle? He goes after Devontae Adams, but on that turnaround in the 2nd round, I mean, he can be a guy that finishes still as a top 5, top 6 wide receiver.
Yeah, definitely. If I was picking at the 7 or 8 spot, I would have definitely been looking to get him on the wraparound. They're already saying, like, yo, this dude could put himself in there as a top 10 receiver this year. I know a lot of people feel like the Dolphins' offense and these receivers, they can't get any better. But when you think about it, there's really no established wide receiver 3 on this offense. We saw a lot of those guys who are vying for that spot play in the first preseason game. No one really stood out. So expect Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill to have another large amount of the target share.
We're going to see Waddle right here. I mean, we know what he could do, not only with the ball in his hands, but down the field, playing in a great offense.
Yeah, the catch and run is crazy.
Second year in the system, obviously, for both Waddle, Hill, and Tua. And the other thing that we didn't even talk about that you mentioned, Jay, you kind of hinted at briefly, like, again, like these guys, in addition to being in their first year of the system last year, they were dealing with passes from Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson, with Tua in and out of the lineup throughout the year. So we really hope, obviously, that Tua stays healthy the entire year. But I think second year in a complicated system and, a hopeful quarterback health throughout, bodes really well for Hill and Waddle.
Yeah, sky's the limit for just everyone on Miami. I think back particularly to that Baltimore game that we saw clips of. It looked like they were playing a different sport where it was 35-14 and then just over. Where Hill and Waddle seem like they're breaking 60-yard catch and runs just constantly. So, yeah, huge upside.
Jay, how about maybe the most complicated pick so far in the draft? That's got to be Josh Jacobs. He went 9th overall in the 2nd round. He goes at the 2.9 spot for Pete, who obviously produces this show as well. Jacobs has not been in camp. We truly don't know what he's going to do. Logic often tells you these guys sit out camp, they come back because they're not getting fined because they haven't signed the franchise tender, and then they end up playing the season. Led the league in rushing last year after kind of being an afterthought last summer. I mean, what do you do with Josh Jacobs in drafts right now?
Yeah, Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor are the two most fun picks at the moment. Just total disasters, really. I mean, Josh Jacobs, we forget that he was the best running back in football last year, and from a fantasy perspective, he was RB3. He's obviously just a complete monster, and it's strange because we're in a similar situation, in another weird situation with Josh Jacobs this time last year where he plays in the Hall of Fame game and no one thinks that he's going to have a good year, and then he wins the rushing title. So I think that where Pete took him is about right, where it blends just the risk that you're not going to see him with the massive upside that he's got to be a top 5 running back. But yeah, it's not a pick that you ever feel comfortable with.
I was really hoping that Nick Chubb would fall to me. He did not. Again, Dameon, who knows I love Nick Chubb this year, screwing me. back to back, just totally, So he grabbed him the pick before me. I was had Chubb landed to me, that would have been my pick. The other interesting thing here, and we'll talk about my pick in a second, but the other thing that's interesting to me about this second round is that we had 3 quarterbacks go. So Jay took Mahomes, Connor, you took Josh Allen, and then Steven, one of our producers, took Jalen Hurts at the 212 spot. So normally we're seeing quarterbacks going in the 3rd, 4th round. This was early to me for these quarterbacks, as great as Mahomes, Allen, and Hurts are. So let's sort of turn it over to you guys about the thoughts on Jay, starting with you, starting the quarterback run and starting it with Mahomes.
Yeah, well, I was hoping that Pollard would fall one more spot, but Kyle pinched him from me. I just felt uneasy about Josh Jacobs, who was probably the next skill position guy off the board, and I thought that, you know, I took Austin Eckler first pick, Mahomes second pick. That's just such a high floor base to start from, because you just know that those guys, if they're going to stay healthy, they're just going to produce. And then I think that gives you the ability to take more shots, ride more variance later in the draft. And yeah, you can't really go wrong with Patrick Mahomes, the #1 player in fantasy by points last year.
I had a similar process, Jay. I really took floor. I took Ja'Marr Chase with the 2nd overall pick, and then I knew either at my 2nd round or 3rd round pick, which were very close, I was taking one of the top quarterbacks if one of the top receivers didn't fall, and they didn't. Devontae Adams, Jaylen Waddle. I really like Tony Pollard. He was gone. T. Higgins, Lawrence took him right there. So I feel so good walking out of the first 2 rounds with an elite wide receiver that could finish as wide receiver 1 and a quarterback that we know can finish as QB1, especially since I was really, really early in round 3 where I could stack another skill player either in that wide receiver or running back group. Yeah.
Well, I got a question for you and our producer, Steven. And it's interesting, too, because like Matthew said, you don't usually see the quarterbacks go in the 2nd round. Jay starts it off in the 2nd round. Let's say he does it, right? Let's say it gets back to you without him picking a quarterback. Do you still go quarterback there, or do you wait till the 3rd round?
I think I would have waited to the 3rd round because I'd know I'm getting one of Mahomes or Josh Allen, and I could have done that as well because I would have been happy walking away with Jalen Hurts. But yeah, I probably would have waited then and see who would have ended up falling in that scenario. But once again, I just wanted one of those 3. I know Barry has them stacked in a row. Literally, in his overall. He has a triple stack of quarterbacks. I feel great about all 3 of those guys for sure.
Yeah, I just think the next guys off the board in skill positions, it's like Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor, and then you're getting into, I think, the next tier of receiver and guys like Olave and Metcalf and Devonta Smith. I just didn't feel there was enough separation between those guys. I just wanted the elite.
I will say the other thing that, and we'll talk about, but I was surprised that A.J. Brown went at 2-1 with Blake. Now Blake is
I'm surprised.
Blake
was going to take him 1-1.
Blake is an Eagles fan. I'm surprised he didn't take Goddard there. But yeah, I mean, so that was the only thing that was surprising to me about that is just when you look at some of the wide receivers that again, Adams and Waddle, you could make an argument for either one of those. Like, I have Adams ahead of A.J. Brown. Like, it was surprising to me that A.J. Brown went there. I really like A.J. Brown. He's really, really good, but
it's indefensible if we want to say it out loud.
It felt a little high.
I mean, speaking of bias, I just love the volume of Garrett Wilson, right?
Yeah.
That's the difference for me. I'm not saying Garrett Wilson right now is better than Waddle or Brown, but the volume that he will get in a Jets offense that has good skilled talent, but he's the only one that really stands out while Breece Hall's also ramping back up, right, Lawrence?
Definitely, yeah. Garrett Wilson, man, it's like they still don't have you like to think it's Alan Lazard. It probably is, being that he won an Aaron Rodgers homeboys, but Garrett Wilson, when it comes to targets, he's going to eat them up. So, yeah, I feel you on that one.
And he's been getting fed in camp as well by Aaron Rodgers already. All right, let's jump in. Oh, you want to jump in, Barry?
I was just going to say Pollard going after Henry. I have them reversed. But I think that's great value for Kyle at 2-7, getting Tony Pollard.
Absolutely.
Who, again, we all think a monster year's coming for him.
Especially with Zeke officially to New
back
England.
in Dallas.
All right, let's jump into round 3 then. Now it starts to get even more interesting. A lot of tough decisions to be made. This is where Jonathan Taylor comes off the board. Lawrence, that starts with you. You take Taylor with the 3rd pick in the 3rd round.
Yeah, it was time. This is a situation again where, yeah, we don't know the situation with Jonathan Taylor. He want to get traded, still rehabbing, mad at the team. Team might be mad at him. Well, Ursay at least, right? So I don't think he's getting back to me, not drafting with these guys. So I'm going to risk it for the biscuit right here. Because, look, at the end of the day, contractually, he ain't got a lot of options right now. You feel me? So it's like, I'm taking him here. This could be a big payoff for me. And it's my first running back. Jonathan Taylor, definitely not mad at that.
It feels like the upside, Jay, of taking Taylor in this round just outweighs any of the players taken. I went back to floor. Again, I took Olave. I really like his floor.
Big floor guy.
Big floor guy in the first 3 rounds here. Jay, I know you ended up taking Travis Etienne, who you could argue is maybe more of a ceiling guy, although the volume should be good for him as well.
Yeah, I think that Etienne, there are some downsides for him, where if Tank Bigsby is taking more 3rd down runs and more goal line runs, more importantly, and Etienne doesn't get the passing usage that we want, then there is some downside, but he's still got a relatively high floor. But he's got immense upside. Doug Peterson's talking about Etienne as a guy who can get 1,600, 1,700 rushing yards this season. He was one of the most explosive running backs, obviously got the pedigree. And I think that team in that division is a -160 favorite to win the division. They're going to have a lot of positive game scripts. And I think that Etienne, he'll just break more big runs this year. That wasn't as present last last year as we would have wanted, I think. So I think ETN, he has a chance to be a top 5 running back.
Barry, my question for you. You take Ramondre Stevenson
Yep.
with the 9th pick in the 3rd round. Jahmyr Gibbs goes to RotoPat's team right before you. Would that have been a tough decision for you?
Would have been a very tough decision for me. I love Gibbs, and honestly, I will tell you that, I have, in terms of wanting to do a running back, because I started with wide receiver, and we're going to talk about my whole team later on. All of us will go through it, but I'll just talk about Gibbs here for a second. I think Gibbs could be very special. We know Montgomery's going to take a bunch of goal line work and get a bunch of touches here, but if you believe in the Lions' offenses here and that offensive line, and knowing how excited they are about Jahmyr Gibbs, who could have a DeAndre Swift if he stayed healthy like season again.
Yep.
I mean, Swift has gotten over 70 targets each of the last 2 years, and he's missed significant time. If Gibbs stays healthy, which we expect, there's no reason why we don't think he would. Gibbs would have been my guy right there. I certainly prefer Gibbs. I was surprised that Ridley went at 3.7, honestly. That's a little rich for me.
He's going higher and higher in
I
drafts
know.
every single week.
Everyone
Ridley.
loves him, and guy hasn't played football in a couple of years, and there's a lot of mouths to feed,
That's
and
a
I
big one
get
for
I
me.
get it. I may want, and it's not like I hate Ridley, but I'm not willing to take him at cost, which is he's going ahead of Deebo Samuel. In our draft, he goes ahead of Deebo Samuel, ahead of DJ Moore, ahead of Amari Cooper, ahead of Keenan Allen, ahead of DeAndre Hopkins. There's a lot of guys there where you're just I don't know.
I would have taken
That's
Gibbs
higher than I would have taken him.
Yep. Connor, on Gibbs, in terms of his upside for this year, in terms of guys who have come out of the draft with this level of pass-catching talent, how many, is it just McCaffrey in recent vintage who's ahead of him?
I think he could be Kamara for the Lions. Peak Kamara, right? Not what has been left of Kamara with injuries and other problems recently, but when Kamara was at his best, that's exactly how they are going to use Jahmyr Gibbs, where you just get the ball in his hands in the pass game, and he's an explosive play threat that you can constantly rely on. So when you hear that kind of comparison in fantasy, round 3 for a rookie running back that's not Bijan Robinson might seem early. I don't think it is at all. His upside is easily a top 5 finish out of the running back category as a rookie.
Yep.
So, all right, let's get into round 4 then. Lawrence, I want to start with you here because I know you've been pretty steady that you think Lamar Jackson can be the top quarterback in fantasy this year. I mean, this man's won an MVP. He's paid. We believe he's healthy now in an offense that will open things up and allow him to throw some more. He comes off the board finally at the 4.6 spot.
Yeah, man, and like I say, if you really believe in a player like that, you take him around ahead of where he's going, which is what our producer Adam Wise did. I slept on the fact that anyone could actually do that, but I really love the Aaron Jones pick here. I like yours too, and Najee Harris. But as far as Lamar Jackson goes, yeah, man, with the offense that we all know about, Todd Monken coming in, he's going in the 5th round. If you really want that quarterback, then you probably have to get him a round earlier than what you would think when you draft him with a sharp group. If we drafted with a sharp
Boy,
group. Yes.
I have to tell you, Kyle at 4.7 taking Drake London is interesting to me. Lawrence, you're as big a Falcon homer as I know, and we don't question the talent.
Right.
I just question the opportunity, right? I mean, I think
Right.
they're going to be a run-first team, and they're suddenly between Pitts and Bijan Robinson. The argument for Drake London last year was they got no one else, they're just going to throw it to him, and just,
But who's going to throw it to him?
Right,
That was the
and
question.
and now quarterback that is questionable on a run-heavy team with other mouths to feed. This when you sit there and you look at Christian Watson, Jerry Jeudy, Mike Williams, there's some other guys out there that this surprised me with Drake London there. Even with I'd rather had an Aaron Jones or some of these other guys that went after him.
And that's exactly what I did. Kyle must love him a lot. But yeah, 4th round for me, I couldn't do it. Yeah, Atlanta Falcons my team, but when we in these drafts and we trying to win, my team is me.
Exactly.
You know what
Your
I'm
team
saying?
is your team.
So I'm happy with getting Aaron Jones here, but if someone does take a guy because Drake London could probably go 2 rounds after that in some drafts. So he must really believe in him. Shout out to him.
The other thing I'll say about this round is Joe Mixon went at 4.1. I was surprised he dropped that far. I took Ramondre Stevenson the round before, and it was between Mixon and Stevenson for me. I went back and forth. We just sort of talked about Stevenson and the Zeke move that day on the draft, and I thought, you know what, like, I went back and forth a long time. I have a lot of Mixon, so I probably just sort of me as a drafter, I didn't, make the distinction, this is a mock and, or real. Like, I always just, if I'm in a mock draft, I try to do it as if it's a real draft. And so I probably would have done the same move because I have a lot of Mixon in earlier drafts because I bought the dip on him. I thought he was going to have the role that he does. And so I went Ramondre there. But I went back and forth, and I actually have Mixon ranked ahead of Stevenson in my overalls. I was surprised that he fell all the way to the 4th round.
Can I just say quickly on Drake London, the argument for Drake London is his 4 games with Desmond Ridder, 6 for 120, 5 for 47, 7 for 96, 7 for 70. Minimum, the fewest targets he got in any of those games was 8. So maybe there is something there with Ridder.
Yeah, because they didn't really add to that passing offense unless you're factoring Bijan Robinson's touches in that category that much.
Right.
So,
you have to,
but you do.
That's fair, but you have to believe. Maybe you don't have to. I believe Pitts will be more involved in the passing offense than he was last year.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get
Just
to
when
him
we
in
thought
round
you were out.
17.
I don't mind Drake London. I just question where he was drafted, I guess is my point, to your point. But anyway, I was surprised that Mixon fell to the 4th round. Again, he is going to be a bell cow running back for a very good offense.
Feels like Drake London's going to have some 3 for 23 games in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Moving over to round 5 here, and Jay, you took a player that I'm particularly very interested in. I did let him go by because I just thought the value of Kittle was too high, but you get Dameon Pierce, who, once again, we often say how important volume is on this show. The Texans, quietly when healthy, have a good offensive line, and maybe having a rookie under center will hurt their run game at times, but Pierce is a guy that should get a lot of volume this year, and it probably paid off for you that you kind of, passed on going running back in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, well, I think with Dameon Pierce, we forget that last year, for so many guys, we worry about them getting the volume. Talk about J.K. Dobbins not getting more than 17 carries in a game last year. Pierce got 20 plus 5 different times. He was an absolute monster as well in terms of broken tackle rate. I think back to that Philadelphia game where he just absolutely ruined them. And he did have some weirdness last year where he was putting cotton wool at the end a bit. First game of the season, it's the Rex Burkhead show. I think there's a ton of value on Pierce. I think as a runner, he might be one of the 5 best in the NFL, and I think that'll surface on a team that should be in more advantageous scoring positions than they were last season.
Barry, you finally go quarterback here. You decided to play the waiting game. I know you've been pretty high on Herbert going into this year. New offensive coordinator comes over from Dallas and Kellen Moore. Obviously, a lot of positives for Justin Herbert all around him going into this year.
In his first 3 NFL seasons, he's got the most passing yards and the 2nd most passing touchdowns by any quarterback in the NFL. You mentioned Kellen Moore. Cowboys were top 6 in points in 3 of the 4 seasons under Kellen Moore. No less than Jay Croucher begged me to make Justin Herbert my fantasy ride or die. I thought it was a little too obvious. I think Herbert's going to have a monster year, and he was the last of the quote-unquote elite guys. Like, I think it's the big 3 of Mahomes, Allen, and Hurts. I think you've got Lamar Jackson. I think you've got Herbert. Fields is borderline there, but I think those 5 and Burrow. Those 6 are like all of them could finish as the number 1 quarterback in fantasy. It's within the range of outcomes, and so Herbert was sort of the last of those guys because Burrow's already gone at this point. So Herbert, other than maybe Fields, I guess, and he went a couple picks later. I thought Herbert had the best chance of the remaining quarterbacks to be number 1 quarterback in fantasy or be within that range. So, yeah, I went with Herbert here. I've been questioning some of Kyle's picks for whatever reason.
Let's go again.
No, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to praise one of Kyle's picks. Kyle Pitts.
He's on there too.
Yeah, no, but Kyle grabbed Mike Williams at the 5-6 spot, and I absolutely love the pick. Again, like you saw me draft Herbert a few picks later, I'm high on the Chargers offense this year. Mike Williams is playing some slot in practice and some of the camp. Like, if he gets some slot, I mean, you could see a scenario where they're moving Keenan outside a little bit. Like, I don't know. I think Mike Williams could have a very, very big year. For years it was Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I think this is the first year that we look back and go, oh, it's Mike Williams over Keenan Allen every single week.
Yeah, and I think people are maybe overrating a little bit how much Quentin Johnson might cut into that. I think it's still going to be the Keenan Allen and Mike Williams show there.
Lawrence, a lot of variance in this round, whether it's Christian Watson, obviously he'll be playing with Jordan Love this year, Jerry Jeudy, will the Broncos offense come to life under Sean Payton, and then of course Kyle Pitts goes to Adam's team at the 7th pick in this draft. Looking at those three offenses for those three guys, who would you have the most faith in?
Well, I took Jerry Jeudy here. Again, this is another time, I thought Pitts could make it back to me. I would have took him in the 6th round, but Adam gets him here. He takes Kyle Pitts. Now, even still, last year he was going at the 3-4 turn. So at least there's like some type of discount for what we think could be like the most upside. Jay mentioned earlier about the targets that Drake London's getting, but remember, Kyle Pitts missed 6-7 games to end the season last year. So he never actually played with Desmond Ridder. So having Kyle Pitts back with Drake London and having the fact that Bijan's there, Pitts will be more involved. So I like Pitts this year.
One last note about round 5 here. After I took Justin Herbert, 3 things happened. Dameon cursed me for sniping him. He had the next pick, so it was good. It was good to get him back finally. But also, Denny at 5'11 takes Fields, and Blake at 5'12 takes Trevor Lawrence. Yeah. So we're through 5 rounds, and 8 quarterbacks at this point are off the board. Feels like that's kind of a trend this year, that quarterbacks go earlier than they normally do, that you generally want one of those elite guys. I would say this, though, and it sort of depends on where you are on Deshaun Watson. But if I didn't get one of those guys, if I'm sitting here at the end of round 5 and I don't have one of those top 8 guys, I'm now waiting. Like, you know what I mean? Like, again, depends on how you feel about Watson, because Watson can be in that mix. I have him at QB9, but
definitely.
Generally speaking, I think it's just interesting that through 5 rounds, we've seen 8. It is a 1-quarterback league. Yep. 8 quarterbacks off the board.
That moves us to round 6, where no quarterbacks were taken in this round, but we did have a lot of players that, could have a new home or could have more upside going into year 2. And I'll start with Damien's pick of Darren Waller, the 3rd pick in this draft. I mean, the reports out of Giants camp have just been that Darren Waller is in for a massive season in Brian Daboll's offense.
I was after I sniped Dameon with Herbert, he sniped me back with Waller. I really wanted Waller right there, really hoping he would fall. I agree with you. I think he has a monster year. I'm at tight end 4. I think he's going to have a big resurgent year, and I think Brian Daboll is exactly the right coach to get the most out of Waller and Daniel Jones. Strong argument to be made that Darren Waller, similar to Kelsey, similar to Mark Andrews, is one of the few tight ends in fantasy football that could lead his team in targets. Like when you think about the player that led the team in targets for the Giants last year was Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
And they've improved that room a little bit, right? I mean, they've certainly added a lot of names there, but the best pass catcher that Daniel Jones is going to have this year, assuming health of all of them, is Darren Waller.
Yep. And I'm a little scarred from camp reports after Allen Robinson last year was talked about as the second coming of Randy Moss, first year on the Patriots. But I do think with Waller, you don't need the camp reports just to understand the talent and the opportunity. And there's just such a mismatch of Giants receivers and pass catchers that Waller is the only guy there who has really a ton of pedigree and I think just clear pathway to playing time and targets.
Jay, you had the 8th pick in this round. You take wide receiver Michael Pittman, and you were, kind of an interesting decision here. 3 guys that all you can point quarterback questions for Pittman. Obviously playing with the rookie Marquise Brown. We know how things are in Arizona right now, when Kyler Murray will be back, if he's back early this season at all. And then George Pickens was on the board too, as he grows with the youngster and Kenny Pickett. So what led you to Pittman in this scenario?
I just think Pittman, he's not the most exciting pick, but just last year he was in as bad a quarterback situation as you can possibly imagine. And he was still 99 receptions, 141 targets, almost 1,000 yards, only the 4 touchdowns. You'd like to see that go up. But I think Pittman's situation this year will be better. I think Gardner Minshew is better than the options they had, and Anthony Richardson has a ton of upside as well. And Pittman, he's just clearly the guy there. Not super worried about Alec Pierce or anyone else. I think he will get a ton of targets.
I'll talk about the pick that went right after Jay, where producer Pete took Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown at the 6'9" spot. And again, I get the quarterback questions. We don't know when Kyler's coming back. Colt McCoy, kind of a noodle arm, whatever. But again, we talk about this. Fantasy success comes from literally 2 things, talent and opportunity. We think Hollywood Brown is a talented player. This is a first-round pick in the NFL. He's produced at a high level in the NFL. And opportunity is going to be massive. Like, his competition is like rookie Michael Wilson, Rondell Moore, the human Dortch, Zach Ertz, James Conner out of the backfield. Like, with DeAndre Hopkins, if you look at, and it's all different, obviously, because they have a new offensive coordinator this year. Brown did not play a game. I don't believe he played a game without DeAndre Hopkins, with Colt McCoy under center. But if you look at the numbers in terms of when Hollywood Brown was out there on the field in games in which Hopkins missed, he was getting like massive target share. He was getting an almost 30% target share. And so I think talent, and because he's so fast and they can scheme different ways, bubble screens, quick slants, reverses, they can scheme different ways to get the ball in his hands. I think this is a real value here in the 6th round.
Can I just say on Pittman and Brown, I think the really rich man's version of this is Devontae Adams, of super talented guys in suspect situations. Last year, the number 1 fantasy player from the skill positions on a per-game basis was Cooper Kupp, who had no offensive line, no talent around him, Matthew Stafford not having a good year, and he still put up insane production just because of the talent and because of the opportunity.
I like the 2 wide receiver picks before Marquise Brown and Michael Pittman in this draft. Tyler Lockett and Mike Evans. Lockett is always a value. He's always going a couple of rounds after DK Metcalf, but will continue to put up similar numbers there. Then you got Mike Evans. Look, the quarterback situation is the main reason he's here. He is Mr. 1,000 yards. He's never had an NFL season in his career without that. So the round 6 is warranted. But at the end of the day, like Matthew just said, talent and opportunity. Some of them footballs might go to the other team sometime, but most of the time it's going to be Mike Evans and Chris Godwin.
Let's jump into round 7 then, and Lawrence, we'll go right back to you here because this felt like the round of everybody trying to figure out opportunity in backfields, and you definitely went down that road by taking the newly signed New York Jet Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook, man. He was there parading around. They practiced shaking hands, drinking out the water cooler. I like him here in the 7th round in what we think is going to be a committee and what should be the best running back tandem in football. I also like getting Isaiah Pacheco right here in the 7th round, as he's their top running back on this offense with Patrick Mahomes. Like, we saw him progress during the second half of the season all the way throughout the playoffs and into the Super Bowl. So I think you get a nice little RB2 situation right there with him.
I honestly, just this entire round 7 running backs, like, I think all these guys are usable and really interesting. I'm going to list off all the running backs who were drafted in round 7 in order. Isaiah Pacheco, Miles Sanders, Dalvin Cook, Javonte Williams, David Montgomery, James Cook, Brian Robinson, and DeAndre Swift. You could see all of these guys having fantasy success. All of them are, whether they're injury prone or whatever, but none of them are quote unquote full-time players. But all of them are going to have significant roles on decent offenses that are going to be viable flex plays or better in some cases. Again, Sanders is probably going to get a heavy workload. Dalvin Cook will get a heavy workload, at least in the early parts of the season. Jahmyr Gibbs might only touch the ball 12 times a game. Now, those might be explosive, and we love Gibbs, but Dave Montgomery is inheriting a role that got 18 rushing touchdowns last year. Brian Robinson, we expect a better year from the entire Commanders offense. James Cook, absolutely love. We're going to talk about him later in the show. Not the biggest Miles Sanders fan in the world, but he's going to get a lot of run there in Carolina. DeAndre Swift behind that Eagles offensive line. We've talked about that backfield. Anyway, the value of running back here in round 7, I think, is really interesting to me. They're all guys that, to me, usually in the round 7, you're kind of this guy. And there's some guys in this list that I like more than others, but for the most part, all these are guys okay, for a round 7 value, I'm in.
Yeah. And on that, and one of the guy that I took is Javonte Williams, and I think the biggest news out of training camp, outside of the Jonathan Taylor stuff and the injury stuff, is that Javonte Williams is playing in a preseason game this weekend. We didn't think that he might. We thought he might miss the first month of the season. He's playing in the preseason. He's going to be good to go in week 1, and I don't think we're going to see him getting 20 carries in week 2 or whatever, but he's got huge upside in the back end of the year, I think.
And shout out to Blake for staying on brand and closing out this round by taking Philadelphia Eagle, DeAndre Swift. All right, moving on to our final round we'll go through here before we take a break and look at the big picture of just teams. Round 8 right here, and Barry, Dameon essentially takes your advice, and without a quarterback at this point, he gets Deshaun Watson at the 3rd pick in the 8th round.
Right, and that's about right. He's the last guy that has elite upside, other than maybe Anthony Richardson. We know what Kirk Cousins is at this point. Solid as you start getting past Watson. So Watson was the last guy that has had a top 5 fantasy season under his belt and could potentially return there as well. So I thought that was a smart pick by Dameon. And this is where you start getting into some of the rookies and some of the younger players, a little bit more flyer territory. You know, Pat taking Treylon Burks, Adam taking Gabe Davis. I love the idea of Davis here in the middle of the 8th round. Pete taking Quentin Johnson. Lawrence, you taking Zay Flowers. I really love that. Steven taking OBJ as well. So both Ravens guys go here. Blake staying in the NFC East. When he's not taking Eagles, he's taking NFC East players. He took Jahan Dotson. He has Barkley earlier. Yeah, I think that's the only division he watches.
Lawrence, you have proven in this draft you're willing to take a risk if it's worth it. If Kamara made it to you in the 10th pick of this round, Kamara went to Kyle's team in the 7th pick of this round, would you have taken him over Zay Flowers?
I was definitely looking at that, especially because, look, I have Taylor, Aaron Jones, 2 other running backs. So if Alvin Kamara is my running back 5, go on my bench for them first 3 weeks.
Right.
You come back, we ready to go. But I had no problem taking Zay Flowers here at all.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to end up with Michael Thomas in almost every draft.
I was going to say,
I really like Michael
Jay,
Thomas.
you stay
I know
very true
Barry
to
hates him,
yourself.
but,
Michael Thomas here.
I just, you know what? I have this weird thing about I like players who play.
Yeah, I don't
That's me. It's a weird thing.
That's not a big thing for me.
I don't
just like
play
the idea of
I don't
playing.
play any of these weird Australian leagues where you get points for being on the bench or IR points. I know you do, and
I
in
do.
which
It's my
case I
favorite.
understand
Yeah.
that.
All these Spider-Man homecoming leagues.
Yeah.
Only thing I'll say, Michael Thomas. Last time he was fully healthy, he was the best skill position player in football.
Yes.
And he's
2011.
3 months younger
Right,
than Devontae Adams. He's younger than Devontae Adams. He's not done yet. He's probably done, but he might not be.
It's been 3 years since that's happened.
That's 3 years. It's fun. It's not nothing.
and
It's
hey,
only
look,
36 months.
we not doing 9 rounds, but I took Anthony Richardson in the 9th
There we
round.
go.
Let's go, baby.
And with that, we'll go to break. When we're back, we're looking at our full rosters from our mock draft 1.0. Get the Rotoworld Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Go to NBCSports.com/draft guide and use promo code Barry20 for 20% off at checkout.
You can also use promo code J10 or Connor5. More and more people using them every single day. I
We
love
gotta
it
get
when
Lawrence
people.
code.
Yeah, 1%
I need a code.
Yeah,
Lawrence
Lawrence
50.
1%
No,
off.
it needs to be DA1.
Okay.
Wow, Lawrence and a collar coming up with all those
Lawrence,
gags.
one.
Yeah.
Put me up.
All right, as you see here, we break down
my,
Barry's full
team, yep.
roster. I mean, I guess you can call it a team.
Yeah. Wow. I went 0
kidding.
RB. I didn't intend to, but again, I'm a big believer in let the draft come to you. So Diggs fell to me at 9, and then I came back around, and I was planning on taking running back. But then Devontae Adams, who I have at wide receiver 7, overall, was sitting there. And so, Adams, who had a 32% target share, 14 receiving touchdowns last year, second most end zone targets in the NFL, playing for the same coach. Yes, downgraded quarterback, but whatever. They're still going to be bad. There's still going to be throwing to Devontae Adams. So Diggs and Adams right there. The other thing to note is this is a 3 wide receiver league. So there's less depth at the running back position and more depth at the wide receiver. So my 3 wide receivers, Stefon Diggs, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins. I also have, boring Jacoby Myers, who's just, kind of.
It's PPR league.
It's a PPR league, and apparently go Raiders for me. Nico Collins, who I like a lot, is kind of a sleeper. I think he's going to get more volume than you think. KJ Osborne, we've talked about him a lot for all the Jordan Addison love. The fact of the matter is KJ Osborne last year's the 3rd wide receiver, got over 90 targets. And Michael Gallup, because, he's Michael Gallup. Why not? He's the last pick.
Two seasons of over 100 targets, Michael Gallup.
Yeah,
There's some upside
and
there.
yeah,
Coming off the ACL a year further removed.
So the strength of my team, obviously, is wide receiver. At running back, I have Ramondre Stevenson and James Conner. Again, James Conner, 18 fantasy points in 5 of his last 7 games. He's played at least 90% of the snaps in 5 of the last 7 games. Back-to-back seasons, averaging over 15 fantasy points per game. I have him as a top 20 running back. He is going to get volume. It's a bad team, I get it, but he's a 3-down back. He's a good pass catcher. So I think Ramondre and James Conner, for a team that in essence blew off running back, is pretty good. Samaje Perine, James Cook, both of whom I like quite a bit. James Cook especially was key for me. I think he's going to lead that Bills team in touches and be kind of the lead running back, one of the best offenses in football. So those are some guys as well as we round out the team. tight end is fine. I got, I have Freiermuth. I have Dalton Schultz as a backup tight end. So, kind of two borderline tight end ones there. But I like the team, especially led by Justin Herbert. Didn't stack anyone, but I like this team. I'll play this league out. I'll play this league out with this team.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta play it out. The winner gets $5,000. No entry fee though. The $5,000 is of your money. You just get. So if you win,
Pretty good league to be in.
if you you like that, right? You like that.
Yeah,
You with that?
3-1 vote.
If you win, you gotta pay nothing.
I feel like there's a
Pride.
catch here.
You get pride.
I feel like this is a bad deal for me. I'm not sure exactly where. I should really try
Great
to
deal.
pinpoint where. So I get to pay $5,000 to play in a mock draft. Got
Whoever
it.
wins, just win the league.
Just win the league and I get to keep my money. Okay, interesting. Or I could just keep my money.
That's an option too.
That's
It's
an
something to
option
think
too.
about.
Something to think
Just
about.
sleep
here.
on this one. Don't answer now.
Maybe Applebee's will put up the 5K. We love our friends
Yeah,
at Applebee's.
hey,
$5,000 worth of riblets.
Eating good.
How about that?
Yeah.
That
Wow.
would be really eating good in the neighborhood.
Oh boy.
Yes.
All right, let's take a look at Lawrence's team. And as Lawrence said, we stopped after 8 rounds on the last segment, but he did get Anthony Richardson in the 9th round. Barry, you said before he was named the starter that he could be a top 12 quarterback. And Lawrence, I like your balance of risk and floor in this draft as well. Risk being Jonathan Taylor, a couple of picks into the 3rd round is something that can win you the league if he gets back or goes to a team that he's happy with.
Yeah, that's definitely that Jonathan Taylor pick in it because we all know you don't win or lose a fantasy league in the 1st round. It's picks like this Jonathan Taylor one. Now, you can see I definitely punted on the tight end, so I got to the later rounds. I took Cole Kmet, who had a career-high 7 touchdowns last season. Justin Fields was really dependent upon him, especially in the red area. Then I'm taking the flyer on Sam Laporta, who should be very involved, especially in the first 6 weeks in this passing game without Jameson Williams. Again, another team that doesn't have a true second receiver there. You got Khalif Raymond, you got Marvin Jones there. So Sam Laporta got a chance to make some impact there early. And I like the balance of my team as far as receivers to running backs goes. That's why I wanted to play this league with $5,000 of Matthew Berry's money. So
Listen, I don't know if I would win this league, but I just know I'd be better than Lawrence's team. Like I just
Are you
know
sure about that?
Yeah.
You sure about that?
I'm real sure about that.
You ever see that meme? You sure about that?
I mean,
I don't know, Matthew. I got
like,
Cam Akers.
I-
Who's taking touches from him? This is my fifth.
Whenever you can stack
defense.
Indianapolis Colts, you got to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
Richardson and Taylor. Let's go.
I got the 6th best quarterback
There's
in
Alec
fantasy.
Pierce. Why didn't you take Alec Pierce?
In a league in which you play 3 wide receivers, and I believe it's full PPR too.
Yes, sir.
Right?
That's correct.
You've got Hill, Higgins, Judy is your 3.
That's fun.
Zay Flowers is your 4. Donovan Peoples-Jones is your 5. Not a lot of wide receiver depth there. I like Hill and Higgins. I'm okay on Judy. I think people are sleeping on Sutton. I think people are hyping up Judy a little bit too much. And then Zay Flowers, we just don't know. I mean, with Zay Flowers and Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think you have no wide receiver depth. I don't mind Zay Flowers as a flyer, but he could be 4th on the Ravens in terms
That's
of
true.
passing options,
That's
right
true.
after Beckham, Bateman, and Andrews.
That's why I got Tyreek Hill getting 2,000 yards. He got to
Okay.
make up for all that.
I mean, Donovan Peoples-Jones is,
it's my last pick.
I understand. I'm just saying, he's got.
My man had
He might have more names than fantasy points.
My man had 800
More names than
receiving
touchdowns
yards.
for sure.
You telling me his 800 yards ain't good in the hood no more?
I'm just saying, when he's your 5th
Eating
wide
good in the neighborhood
receiver,
with Donovan
when he's your 5th
Peoples-Jones.
wide receiver in a league that starts 3 wide receivers.
What about I got Jeff Wilson? He walking out. He just started.
I like Jeff
1,000
Wilson.
scrimmage yards. Devon A-Chain is a nice little pick too, but
know,
not
but-
early. Not early.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's
That's
take a look
all
at
fair.
Jay's team here. He obviously led his draft off with Austin Eckler and then went Patrick Mahomes in the 2nd round and then back to running back with Etienne in the 3rd round. So Jay, waiting on wide receiver, something that it felt like nobody else in this league did.
Yeah, it's not a great team, is it? No, it's okay. No, it's okay. I'm just going to need Mahomes and Eckler to do some heavy lifting here. I went with the Sam Hinkie strategy here of not really caring about positions, just taking best available. And if you end up with Joel Embiid, Jaleel Okafor, Nerlens Noel, so be it. I really just took the best player available. The wide receiver position is obviously a question mark here with Pittman. I really need either Thomas or Sky Moore to pop. Realistically, if we were going to turn this into a league, I would be trading Dameon Pierce for a wide receiver, I think, because there's not a lot of depth there. But loaded at quarterback, running back, and tight end, and need some of the receivers there.
But I think you bring up a great point here, Jay, which is right. Your wide receivers are trash, right? And so, but hang on, no, you acknowledge that. I mean, your starting wide receivers are Pittman, Thomas, Sky Moore.
Thomas for 2 weeks.
Yeah, Michael Thomas for 2 weeks. Then Adam Thielen and Darnell Mooney round out the squad.
I like Darnell Mooney.
I don't mind Darnell Mooney, especially where you got him in the 13th round, 12th, late in the 12th round. And Thielen, too, I don't mind either, right? But, what I would say, though, is that I think when you're in a draft and the picks aren't falling your way, better to just sort of, to your point, like if we were playing this out, I mean, so your running backs, Eckler, Etienne, Dameon Pierce, Javonte Williams, Kenneth Gainwell, who we've talked about,
Right.
like you might be able to live with Gainwell as your flex.
Yep.
And so, if Javonte Williams is in fact healthy, you've got an Eckler, Etienne, Pierce, and Javonte Williams. You potentially have 4 top 20 running backs. You're only going to be able to play 3 of them. So I'm a big believer in take what the board gets you. You don't have to. All draft day is a baseline, right? It's just the foundation, and then you can start moving on. So I'd rather draft a good player than reach for another wide receiver just because you feel like you're at the end of the run.
Exactly right, Matthew.
All right, we'll close. We'll close this out with my team. I took Ja'Marr Chase with the 2nd overall pick.
I've heard of him.
Josh Allen in the 2nd round, and then went back to wide receiver here.
Ja'Marr Chase is a very smart investor, by the way. Just FYI. I'm just
I've
saying
heard.
that.
I've actually read about some of his recent investments. If you don't know what I'm talking about,
Very
just give it a
smart
quick
investor.
search. Chris Olave, who, Barry, I align with you that he's going to have a monster year with Derek Carr. I really think so. And then the upside pick for me is George Pickens at the end of the 6th round. I think Pickens is going to be Kenny Pickett's go-to guy. He can win the jump ball. He can win down the field. It's never been about talent with George Pickens going all the way back to Georgia. He's always had that. He's healthy. He's locked in and ready to roll with the Steelers.
A lot of young players on here, which not surprising given your background. Charbonnet, Jamison Williams, who's basically a rookie, both of whom I like. I like Alec Pierce as your last round pick as well. I think he's kind of interesting this year. But yeah, Ja'Marr Chase and Josh Allen, that's a great connection. Also a smart investor, Josh Allen. Josh Allen and Ja'Marr Chase are really smart investors.
That's how I drafted my team.
Smart. Good.
Yeah, anybody that makes good
Good to see you
investments.
get Aaron Rodgers there on the 13th round as well, the minus
had to do
5,000.
That way
I
when
did
you
my
see
Blake
around the
pick.
facility, you say, hey, I drafted you on my fantasy
100%.
team.
I might even
My
start you
mock
this
draft.
week.
You're right.
Over Josh Allen? Probably not.
No, don't
But-
tell me you have Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, I have you on my fantasy
Fantasy
team.
team. All right, with that, we'll take one more break. When we're back, it's last call.
If you win the contest and you come, and it's a great contest, by the way, right? You get flown out here, they put you up in a nice hotel, you come, you hang out with all of us. You don't have to talk to Jay if you don't want to. By the way, you could also, I think you also get to host Sims Unbuttoned. Don't literally let anyone do that. See?
That's Barry on Chris Sims Unbuttoned. Anybody could host it, according to Matthew Barry. Not
Pretty
me.
much. I literally won a contest. That's how I'm here.
To be on
By the
Chris
way,
Sims
yeah,
Unbuttoned.
I won this contest last year, and now look at me. I've got my own show. So
You just never
anyway,
left. Speaking of that contest, here's your chance: win a VIP trip for 2 to watch a live taping of the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Go behind the scenes, meet the crew, and get a front row seat to all that. We're still putting those in, by the way. To all the fantasy insights and debates to help you win your league live from the NBC Sports Studio. Enter now at NBCSports.com/Barry Sweeps.
you'll get to come. You'll get to meet us. You'll be a guest bartender on the show. I'll play you in Blitz, or if you'd like to actually win the game, you can play one of these other guys. We'll let you do that as well. Lawrence will take you to dinner. You get to spend the night and babysit Jay's kids. There's a lot going on. Honestly, absolutely.
It's a lot of work, this contest. If you win,
Me and Jay talked about this, right? And we talked about applying ourselves.
Yeah.
What's the chance you think one of us could win this thing?
I think a very good chance. I don't know how much promotion we're doing for the contest. There might only be, you guys might be the only ones entering. Who knows? Anyway, NBCSports.com/Barry Sweeps. We would love to meet you and your guest.
How was unbuttoned?
It was great. It was fun.
Great
I might have
promo.
been late.
No way.
Shocker. I hit a little traffic, but I was good. We
just
talked
leave
about
earlier.
we talked.
No.
I have kids. I know you just hand your 3 kids off to your wife and you just like you figure it out. But like I gotta drive them to gymnastics. I got one girl in camp. I got another one in
Pin it on
gymnastics
gymnastics.
camp. So yeah, 1,000%. I also live thousands of miles away.
Wow.
Like
fly
I live
here.
in 3 different zip codes away.
It's all right. So
Like
you're gonna pin it on gymnastics and I-95. How about the man in the mirror and the alarm clock?
1,000%. Him, I don't know.
Got him.
You don't
We're
have
back
to go
tomorrow.
home, but you can't stay here. It's closing time. For Jay, Lawrence, and Connor, I'm Matthew. Peace out into the contest. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.